Okay. Let's see. Alexis, yes, figuring out who you are can definitely be a whirlwind, honestly. But I like to think of it like this. You are going to become whoever you're supposed to become um whenever you become that person. It's like a seed, right? Like you've got a cherry seed, a mango seed, an avocado seed, lots of different seeds. Sometimes we can't differentiate one seed from the other, but when we plant it in the ground, in the soil, and with nurturing and with watering and tender and care, all that good stuff, that seed grows into whatever plant or flower it's supposed to be. So it can seem like a daunting task to figure out who you are, but you have your whole life literally to figure it out. So I think you're on the right path in just coming to this event. And I'm hoping, keeping my fingers crossed that it all works out. Let's see, what's been on my heart is desiring everyone to find internal love and external acceptance. Yes, Dr. Beckman, absolutely. Oh, Lord. I've been thinking a lot lately about love, especially since we just came out of like Valentine's, you know, season, what would you have? And we had like a Valentine's Day event. And one of the points that I wanted everyone to know is like, loving yourself is just as important as other people loving you. Because sometimes we don't love ourselves. We just hope that everybody else loves us. But if we don't love ourselves, nobody can love us because no one can love us more than we can love us. So it's like, it's a lot. But even me these days, guys are like, oh, I like you and you're so perfect. And I'm just like, well, that's great, but it doesn't make a difference to me because I like myself. I love myself already. So you doing that or not doing it is just like an add on. But yeah, I do hope that everyone can, at some point, find inner love because it is very beautiful to have love for yourself and to be accepted by others. Yes, but that's not mandatory. The self love is the most important part. So I appreciate that. Let's see. What's been heavy on my heart are two things. Am I living life correctly? Slash to my fullest, and when will it be my turn? Ooh, that is a good one. Um, I think that when is it gonna be our turn is a very good question, you know. Um, but we never really know when our turn really will be. Does that make sense? Like Vera Wang started maybe like in her 40s. Oprah got rejected so many times before she actually became the Oprah Winfrey. Um, Steve Jobs and people like that, Jeff Bezos, they started in like garages, you know? And back then they were probably thinking, oh my God, is this ever going to work? Am I ever going to be who I want to be? But I really do believe that life has a way of working things out. I'm not sure what everyone's beliefs are, but personally, I'm a Christian, and the Bible says all things work together for the good of those who love God. And I really do believe that because life happens in a way where we might go through experiences, we might feel certain things, we might get to a place where we're just confused and lost. But when you look back, like after a certain amount of time, you realize, oh, well, all of that happened for a reason. All of those experiences led me to where I am currently. So I cannot predict the future. I don't think anybody can, but it's going to happen. And an eventuality of life's experiences, where you are supposed to be is where you will end up. I truly do believe that. Um, and before I go to Christina, I want to say, that you don't have to be anything but who you are now. You know, like we have this weird setup in society where it's like, okay, well, I gotta be rich, I gotta be a million, I gotta be thin, but I gotta be healthy and I gotta be buff. And there's so many like expectations of who we should be. But I do like the quote that you are a human being, not a human doing. And so I want you and everybody else on here to know that, like, as you are now, just even just sitting here, you are valid. Like, you are worthy, of whatever it is that you want, but you are valid in simply just your existence. Um, of course, we have desires to go forward and achieve things, which is great. But I had to learn for myself, like, yeah, I don't have to be anything really, like, because before anything else, I'm a human being. So I want you to know that too. You are completely valid, guys. Um, let's see. What's been on my heart is the finally this year I break free from any toxic people. Mm, yes, Christina. Toxic people are so draining. Literally so draining. Um, give me a second. Okay, yes. Toxic people are so draining. And this is one of the reasons why I do what I do, to inform people and really enlighten them about narcissism, abuse, childhood trauma, toxicity, all of that terrible stuff. Because life really sucks when you're surrounded by people who just want to drain you and antagonize you and just make your life horrible. But we don't have to be around toxic people. I know we feel like we have to be for one reason or the other, but I like to think of it this way. I don't have to put up with anybody's crap. Nobody.
You?
Huh? Oh, you're fine. I didn't know if you wanted to say something, but yes. Um, you don't have to put up with anybody's crap, especially if you don't want to, you know? And I know that in our childhoods, we are raised and groomed to believe that abuse and toxicity and narcissism and all kinds of stuff is love. It is not. It is so not. And I did an episode of my podcast about redefining what love is, because love should not be painful and it shouldn't be exhausting and draining and sickening. Whatever that is not love. So I clap for you, Christina. I am so happy that you are finally taking the step. It takes some time, it really does. But we get tired when we get tired. After a while, the toxicity gets boring. So I clap for you. Let's see. Regina, I've been working through plans for full-time return to the office. Awesome. I think that's great. It's good to have something to look forward to. And, you know, I can remember my therapist, she's on the call now, but I think she's a little bit busy. In the past, she's told me it's good to have things to look forward to. And I hope it all works out. I wish you the best. And
yeah. I'm a Fed, so there's that whole side of it too. It's we're kind of in a command performance situation right now.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So it's not exactly a positive thing. I mean, right. You get to see people around and stuff, but you're just not sure about a whole lot of the rest of it.
I get that. I would say try to make it as comfortable for yourself as possible. Yeah. Yes, it might be undesirable, a lot going on in a lot of different circumstances, but we do have to take care of ourselves first and put ourselves first, no matter what the case is. So if you want to decorate your office in a nice way, or have calming music playing in your earphones if you can, or, just try to make it as comfortable for yourself as possible. If you're going to be miserable, you might as well be as comfortable as you possibly can, because that's the best thing I can think of. But I'm hoping everything works out, and I hope that it's not as bad as it makes once you do return. Let's see. Gina, I've been putting all my trust in God, waiting for a healthy, I'm assuming loving relationship. I'm asking for patience because I've been alone for 2 years. I get it. I so get it, Gina. Um, I think it's awesome that you're putting your trust in God because I'll be very frank, if not for God, I do not know where I certainly would not be here doing this. So it's really good to trust him, you know. And I get it. Sometimes it can be lonely being alone, but good things come to those who wait, you know, because you can get into a relationship right now if you wanted to. But I think in waiting, we teach ourselves patience and we wait for something better. It's like, do I want to just throw this hot pocket into the microwave? Or do I want to have a pot roast that's been stewing for 8 hours with all the carrots and the potatoes and the garlic and all kinds of good stuff? Sometimes quicker is not always quality. And so I know sometimes it can suck waiting. Me, I'm single by choice right now in my life. And some days when I see everyone like in love, I'm just like, am I the only person who's not in love right now? But love has a funny way of finding you when you're not looking for it. You know, I tell people instead of looking for love or looking towards love, look towards your purpose. Look towards what makes you happy. Look towards God, if you would. And in that, the joy you start to feel, you tend to not even miss the relationship. And then, ironically, somebody who honors you for you and really has the desire to love you just falls out of nowhere. So I think it's good that you are trusting God. I don't think there's anything wrong with waiting. And I know that one day it's going to work out for you. I think you're going to have exactly what you want because you didn't settle. Sometimes we look at it as waiting. I think of it as not settling. So just the perspective. And while you're waiting, you got friends like me and all kinds of other people that, you know, join these events and group conversation and things of that nature. So we'll wait with you, girl. Wait with you. Let's see. And then I think one last one, and then we're going to get into our presentation. Um, let's see, Martha, your brother's medical situation still weighs heavily on your heart. I completely understand that. And I am praying for you and your brother and your family. Um, and it's so funny because when I was on my way here, I was praying for everybody that joined the call today that, you know, whatever is on your guys' hearts, that whatever is holding you back or holding you down or depressing you or saddening you, I want to stand in the middle of that and really encourage you guys and just inspire you all. And just I want everyone to at least walk away feeling maybe 5 pounds lighter than when they came. 10 might be a stretch. We can't, Rome wasn't built in a day. But if you can just walk away 1 pound lighter than we came in, I think that I would have achieved my desire. So,
Okay. Thank you.
well, absolutely. In the meeting room. So I really appreciate you all for, you know, trusting me and trusting your environment and, you know, being willing to share what it is that you're going through, experiencing, all that good stuff. So without further ado, we are ready to go. Do you guys see lines on my screen or is it just let's see. All right. Gotta go back. Zoom in its apps. Okay, perfect. So let me try to turn my camera off and then okay, there we go. Perfect. So yes. Today we are going to be talking about narcissistic abuse, toxicity in relationships and family dynamics. And you know, one of the reasons why I wanted to have this event is for me as a person who has grew up experiencing narcissistic abuse, I didn't have the language to describe what it was or even know what I was experiencing. Um, it took me down a lot of very questionable paths. I mean, there were some times in my life, especially in my recent life, where I was just like, what's going on? How did I end up here? And why does it seem like everyone is like against me? Everyone hates me. I just could not figure out what was going on. I, at some point, thought maybe I'm just crazy, but no, once I actually started learning about narcissism, family dynamics, abuse, and things of that nature, I started going to therapy. I started my healing journey and just really learning more about myself. I realized I'm not crazy. Actually, this is a real thing and this is a real experience that not only me faces, but so many other people as well. So that's just one of my intentions tonight to really inform you and for you to walk away with a lot more understanding of what narcissism really is and how it does impact us. And give me 1 second. Let me just start sharing my screen here. Okay, one more person coming in. All right. Yes. So, how it impacts us, what we can do to kind of navigate through it, rid ourselves. It's just, it goes so deep. So deep. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Yes. Okay, perfect. Let me turn up my audio. Present. Okay, all good? Awesome. All right. So, yes, everyone, officially welcome to the Narcissistic Abuse and Toxic Relationship Dynamic Seminar. Like I said, I just wanted a space for other people to know that, hey, you're not crazy either. Some of the things that you might have experienced, maybe in your childhood, in your relationships, at your job, wherever, some of those things that you want to call out, but you don't really know if it really happened. I've seen it all. So I just wanted to officially welcome you guys um, and kind of go over some of the things that we're talking about. So for our table of contents, or if you want to call it the agenda, I'm going to do a quick introduction. Then we're going to go into defining narcissism and narcissistic abuse. I'm going to go over some of the types of narcissists uh, because, of course, there are different types. It's not just one or two, they exist everywhere. I do want to give a disclaimer about the difference between self esteem and narcissism, then go over some of the manipulation tactics and why they do it. And then I'll kind of, prompt to you guys and ask you if you've ever experienced some of those things so I can kind of gauge, what everyone's personal experience is, how the toxicity ends up impacting you as a person. And then we are going to go over some steps to freedom. Because at the end of the day, I know everybody wants some form of peace. They want to escape, they want to get out of those situations, relationships, or dynamics. So we're going to go over some steps to freedom. And then I'm going to open it up for a Q&A if anybody has any questions, concerns, thoughts, anything of that nature. And then I'm going to give you guys some resources that I think are very helpful. Some of these have, worked for me. And then we'll be all done. But I'll try not to keep you all too long tonight. I think we should be done within maybe like an hour and a half, just to be on the safe side with everything. Awesome. So yes, officially, if you don't know me, I know some people, you guys are in the women's group and you're joining, so you've already met me, but some others, you guys might be new. My name is Alyssa Khadija. Khadija is one of my middle names, but I like how it, flows together. So hence Alyssa Khadija. I am a Christian, as I have mentioned before. I am the host of the Girl I Got You podcast and the founder of Femme Fatale Sorority Incorporated. That's just what I like to call my women's group overall. Um, we are a sisterhood, but not like the typical sorority. I just like to have a space for women to come, feel supported, to be encouraged, to really let go and just have fun. So that's that. I am a master life coach in training. I want to point that out in training, but my training will be over very, very soon. And then I will be able to really officially help people in a more one on one setting. I am a certified mental health first aider. I am an author, poet, so much more. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, a survivor of narcissistic and emotional abuse as well. Um, I have experienced forms of sexual violence in my life. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so invested and steadfast in helping other people because some people never make it out. Some people, they succumb to their past. They fall into the rabbit hole, if you would, of just abuse, and they never really heal from some of the things that they experienced. So, as somebody who has healed and is still healing, I just want to extend a hand to other people who may have had similar experiences, um, even if not the exact experiences that I've had, just to be a helping hand for somebody. Um, and overall, I am a survivor, and so are you. So I want you guys to give yourself credit because you've made it through all of your bad days and you are here. That's got to count for something. So I want to give you all your flowers, um, and just, kind of give you an insight into who I am as a person. Let's see. So, what are my intentions? Number one is to educate and enlighten you. I know that we hear the word narcissism get thrown around so much. Oh, well, my boss is a narcissist. My boyfriend didn't text me back. He's a narcissist, whatever have you. But I think that's a very shallow way of describing it and looking at it. Um, Narcissism is a completely, it's a huge field. It's a huge field, and I think a lot of people don't really get deep into it. They just kind of throw the word around. So again, I went down the rabbit hole of healing and I realized, oh my God, like this is exactly what I've been experiencing. Who would have thought? So I want to, give you guys that same experience of removing the scales from your eyes and helping you to learn and understand some of the dynamics you might have been experiencing. Two, to free you from the shackles of toxicity. Because when we know better, we do better. And I can't fault anybody for being stuck in a particular type of situation when you might not even know what's going on. So I want to free you guys from those toxic situations, family dynamics, relationships, all of that. Number three is to help you heal from some of the things that you might not speak about. I know that when we're experiencing harsh environments, we're experiencing trauma or abusive dynamics, we can go inwards and not want to come out. It's like we hide in a shell, if you would. But I want you guys to know that you don't have to live in a shell anymore. You don't have to live in a cocoon anymore. You can be free. I know it seems like it's hopeless and there's just no way out of it, but there is healing and there is restoration. So I want to help you with that. I also want to help you foster a new sense of self because sometimes we create an identity of ourselves based off of the environment that we've been in or always have been in. We create an identity and live in that identity based off of what people have said about us. So, for example, I remember growing up, I always used to get called fat. I could never understand what it was because when I look at my childhood pictures now, I wasn't, I might have been a little chubby, but I can never understand why not only children, but adults as well would call me fat as a kid. And growing up, I really took that on as my identity, and it made me very uncomfortable. I remember when I was in middle school, I used to hide my thighs all the time because I just thought, oh my God, like my legs are huge, but they weren't. It's just that it's almost like that concept of telling somebody something so many times, even if it's not true, they actually start to believe it. Um, you know, and if you guys are typing in the chat, I can't see it, unfortunately, but I will try to go over everything when I kind of X out of the presentation. Um, but yeah, I wore baggy clothes. I'd always have things that were very, very big over me just to hide my body because I genuinely thought that not only was I fat, I thought that I was ugly. We base a lot off of what people tell us, especially when we're younger. And when you live in that identity, it's not really the authentic you per se, it's just who you have come to believe that you are. So I want to foster a new sense of self for you where you are being your authentic self and you're proud of it and okay with it and not living in the lie that people have told you. My intention, again, number 5, is to inspire growth and encourage change in your life. I know sometimes we live our lives in this sort of mundane routine. I wake up, I get ready. If you got a dog, you let the dog out. I commute to work, I get on the train, I work, I commute home and, eat dinner, let the dog out again, take care of the kids, I go to sleep, and then I do it over and over and over and over again. And me, I'm 26. I look at life very differently. And I'm not judging anybody else's life. You got to do what you got to do, but it must suck to. I know it sucks because I kind of live that lifestyle right now. Just over and over again, that same routine. You're not really finding joy in it. You're not really excited about it. You're not excited about life anymore. You're just kind of existing. And we really do. I know it sounds so cliche, but we only get one life to live. And this is your life. And by God, you can do whatever it is that you want to do with your life. Not telling anybody to quit their job because I don't want anyone to like lose their house or anything. But if you want to, I don't know, work for a year and save up as much money as you can and buy a Winnebago and just travel cross country for the rest of your life, you can do that. If you want to sell your house and buy I don't know, a mini home or whatever have you, and spend your time just camping out at different places, you can do that. If you want to go on a vacation every month, you can do that. It might not be the expensive vacation to Fiji that we might be looking for, but going to the next state over can be a vacation. So I just want you guys to have a new outlook on life and kind of encourage you to change some things and get rid of the mundane, if you would. And then lastly, to boost your self-esteem and leave you feeling confident and empowered. Yes, knowledge empowers us to make good choices. It empowers us to make changes. And when you experience narcissistic abuse, one of the biggest things you're going to experience, if you haven't already, is the chipping away at your self esteem. And I don't want to give too much out, but I want you guys to know it's deliberate. The destruction of your self esteem is a deliberate practice because if you have high self esteem, you wouldn't tolerate me abusing you. You wouldn't tolerate me calling you names or telling you things about yourself that are inappropriate. If you had high self esteem, you would leave. And so, in a lot of these dynamics, your self esteem is destroyed, really just chipped away at over time so that you'll stay. Because if you stay, the narcissist or the abuser or the manipulator, they'll have their emotional punching bag, and that's just going to be that. So I want you guys to leave with a renewed sense of self and self-esteem. And outside of that, just anything that you didn't come in with, whether it be peace, whether it be clarity, whether it be joy. I want you to walk away with anything. So just get what you need. I know sometimes in church they say just get what you came for and go on. But yes, hopefully I'm able to accomplish at least one of these things. But I think I can do that. So narcissism. What is narcissism? Yes. Narcissism, or people with narcissistic personality disorder, shortened version is NPD. They are in love with an idealized, grandiose image of themselves. And they're in love with this inflated sense of self and self image because it allows them to avoid deep feelings of insecurity. But propping up their delusions of grandeur takes a lot of work. And that's where the dysfunctional attitudes and behaviors come in. So I want you guys to know that narcissists, abusers, manipulators, and I'm just going to use those words interchangeably, they do have very low self esteem. And that's one of the reasons why they feel the need to break down your self esteem. Because if you have high self esteem, you're going to act in confidence and you are going to exude that. And they cannot take when other people love themselves. They don't like when other people have high self esteem because it makes them feel bad about themselves. So they would rather lash out, abuse, manipulate, curse you, treat you horribly so that you never really realize yourself and have that esteem or self esteem that they don't have. Now, that goes over into narcissistic abuse, which is a form of emotional abuse where an individual with NPD and those traits, they manipulate, they exploit, emotionally mistreat their partner, children, employees, whoever have you. And there's a lot of damage that it can inflict. We'll go over some of those things later in the presentation, but narcissistic abuse, I want you guys to know it happens over time. It's not just one incident where you can clearly call it out and say, okay, my sister stole my car and then she told me it was my fault. That's a very clear situation that warrants being angry. But with narcissistic abuse, it's very systematic. It can be very subtle at times, and it takes place over a long period of time, which is why some people get to maybe 40, 50, 60, and they look back and they're like, what happened in my life? What happened to my life? Where did it all go wrong? Because it's something that if you don't get awareness and clarity on, it can follow you for the rest of your life. This is why a lot of people they, get older and either they're an abuser themselves or they're filled with regret of the life that they never lived. And one thing I practice is radical acceptance. I think of life this way. I would rather be afraid and do it now than to get to the end of my life and regret not doing what it is that I had wanted to do. Because, oh, regret. Regret is such a horrible feeling. And I want myself and I want you guys to live. That's why you're here, to live your life. And yes, I know it might be daunting or scary to live, but you can do it in increments. You can do it in small ways. It's step by step. But with narcissistic abuse, their whole purpose is to stop you from living your life. And it really sucks. And I know for me, again, I'm 26. I got to a place recently where I said, oh my God, I'm 26 years old and I've never been in like a real relationship. I've never lived on my own. I still do live with my parents, making my plans. But I realized, oh my God, like up until this point, all the things that I believed about life and myself, I was just told those things to stop me from actually going out and living and really becoming who I want to be. And so this is again why I do stuff like this is because I'm so aware of it and I want other people to be just as aware and put their foot down and say, no, I am going to live my life. And whatever you guys think about it, that's not my business. Now, how they do it is they often use manipulation tactics such as love bombing. Um, I'm sorry, love bombing. They'll do the gaslighting, all kinds of things of that nature, devaluation, and the whole point is again through this manipulation, their goal is to dominate you. They want to control you because they need you to regulate themselves. Because again, they have experienced their own traumas as well, but instead of healing, they have decided to operate out of that trauma and hurt and traumatize other people. It's very hard for them to regulate themselves as individuals. So they keep you around as the emotional punching bag and the psychological whipping post, if you would, so that they feel good about themselves. They are calmer, so to speak, and can regulate. Because if you're not there, who is going to take that verbal lashing or that emotional like fist fight? They're just going to have to find somebody else. So I want you to know that they do these things for a reason. It's not just they hate you, and I'm not justifying it either. I want you to know that. I just want you to know what it is, how these people operate, and how they do it. But we're gonna go over all of that. So no need to worry. And please, please, please grab your notebooks. Please grab your notebooks, some paper, a pen, your notes in your phone, because we are going to get into the meat and potatoes here. What are the types of narcissists? Now, remember when I said earlier that they exist everywhere? They exist at school, at work, at church, at the mosque, at the grocery store, in your own house, your own family. They exist everywhere. Not to say that everybody is a narcissist, but these people have a way of operating in society. Sometimes you know, sometimes you won't know. So I want you guys to, if anything, of course, you don't have to write down all of this, but whatever resonates with you and whatever you feel is relevant to you, um, you can write that down and take notes on it. So, number one would be the overt or grandiose narcissist. So, they are very charismatic, they're extroverted, they're charming, they can be exploitative. So, those people who openly take advantage of others, very controlling, and they have a very inflated ego and they expect special treatment. So these are the people, I think there's that story of like the little prince, right? Like Napoleon complex. It's so obvious. They think that they are God's gift to earth. They're better than everybody else. Sometimes they'll mask it as well. Oh, well, I ran this morning for 15 miles. What did you do? It's just like, okay, I don't know why you have to compare yourself, but you know what I'm saying? These are typically not all the time men, but if a man, for example, is like a serial cheater or somebody is a serial cheater and they always have an excuse and a reason, this person is most likely a overt narcissist. I can abuse you openly and I'm going to justify it. And because I have other people backing me up, um, I believe that I'm right in what I'm doing to you. I don't care how much it hurts you. I'm just here for myself. So that's typically somebody, not always a male, but typically a male. It's very overt, it's very obvious. Those people, it's very easy to stay away from. But the covert or vulnerable narcissist, typically a female, not all the time, but typically, this person is more introverted. They're very sensitive. They are insecure. Sometimes they can be withdrawn. They might experience, mental health issues such as depression or bipolar disorder. They do have low self-esteem at times, and they can be very defensive. And they oftentimes play the victim. Now, what does this look like? A covert narcissist rather. Um, I know a few. I know one very personally. And she is the type of person who, if she is not getting attention, she will lash out completely and get that attention however she can. right? She's the kind of person who, to the world, she's a victim. Oh, poor her. And, she's such a great person. She's, for a lack of better terms, Mother Teresa or whatever have you. Very altruistic. These are the kinds of people who sacrifice so much of themselves because it makes them look good. So again, to the world, they are a victim. Woe is them. They're so helpless. Oh my God. But behind closed doors, this person is very abusive. This person will manipulate, they will gaslight, they will chip away at your self esteem as well through constant criticism. They'll hide their criticism and their insults as compliments. Oh, that's a nice dress, but don't you think you look a little bit big in it? And there's a difference between a shady comment versus this is always the narrative. You can never do anything good, right? It's always what's wrong with you. And another thing that they do oftentimes is they'll try to one up you, right? So you could say, oh, well, I lost my job today. And they'll say, oh, well, I lost my house. Oh, okay, well, I broke my leg. Oh, man, well, I broke my neck, back, spine, and arms. Oh, well, my son got into Yale Law School. Oh, well, my son is going to the moon, actually. He's about to buy a property on Mars. And it's just like, okay, I get it, but why do you feel the need to constantly one up somebody? And unfortunately, what their desire is to always invalidate your experience, especially when it's a negative experience that you're having, so they can maintain their stance as the victim of all victims. They don't ever want anybody to experience anything worse than them because then the attention would go to that person. And if they can remain the victim of all victims, as mentioned, then they will keep getting sympathy, they'll keep getting attention, they'll keep getting flowers and cards. This kind of person oftentimes uses sickness as a way to get attention as well. I had an aunt of mine tell me, um, just me, nobody else. She thinks she has cancer. And I'm like, okay, well, that sucks. That's scary. Should we tell, my mom, should we tell somebody? She said, no, 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 no. Don't tell anybody about it. And again, to the untrained eye, that might seem like just a regular interaction. But again, these people are so desperate for attention. And it goes back to their self-esteem. So I want you guys to know that. So the next kind of narcissist is a communal. This is a subtype of the overt or grandiose. Um, Again, and it goes into the altruism, the helpful, generous, empathetic person. I kind of mentioned that. They seem like a genuine person. They seem like they just want to help and they just want to sacrifice for everybody. But realistically speaking, when you look at the results of their life, say, and I would say this communal kind of, narcissist, this would be seen more so in like grandparents, right? Particularly grandma, not shading anybody's grandma here, not even my own, rest their souls. But, you know, I watched my grandmother growing up in Jamaica. I watched her be very self-sacrificing. She would wash by hand almost everyone's clothes. She would be in the kitchen cooking every day. Breakfast, dinner. It was like clockwork, right? She would give food to some of the people in the neighborhood. She would sew clothes for people, whatever have you. I love my grandmother, but being objective now, when I look back and see the result of her child raising, because most of my aunts, uncles, mom herself, they're a bit narcissistic, at least or at most abusive. And I'm like, okay, granted, the communal narcissist is a good person. They're very giving and they're loving, but you see the results of their emotional self in the children that they raise or the people that they are around, if that makes sense. So it's that kind of tell me I'm doing good, tell me I'm doing a good job. They want to be seen as the most helpful and altruistic. It is a way of getting attention for them as well. Now, there is the malignant and the antagonistic narcissist. Now, the malignant is a more severe type. Um, Sometimes they're associated with antisocial traits, but they're very hostile, very aggressive, can be paranoid or sadistic. These are the people who think that they have a right to abuse people. And when I say abuse, I do mean physically and or sexually as well. Sometimes they will even go on to taking someone's life and they get pleasure out of this, right? Not all the time is it that severe, but this person is very obviously narcissistic or at least abusive. If you want a good example of it, think of an incel, right? So an incel is typically a male who is a romantic leper, if you would. He might not be the most attractive, he might not have the most money. He does not have the best of luck with women. So instead of turning in and reflecting and saying, okay, if I want to attract better partners and have better relationships, I'm going to better myself. They will go on an anti woman rampage. I hate women. You know, women deserve to be assaulted. Sometimes they go even as far as to assault women and they think that they're justified in it because they have been rejected. So these are people to definitely stay away from. And if you're around somebody that's kind of like that, just try your best to get as far away from them as possible. Um, and then antagonistic as well. So antagonistic narcissists, they can be kind of competitive. They are overt as well. They can be very arrogant, very disagreeable. They can be argumentative and extremely competitive as well. I know somebody like this on one of the apps I stream on. He's the kind of person where as soon as he enters into the live stream, all attention must go to him. He will come in and make comments saying, you know, fat women shouldn't have children. And I ran 15 miles this morning and, you know, fat people are this, that, and the third, right? And to people, it's just like, what's the need for any of that? You know, but he wants to be the center of attention, the winner of all winners. They are very arrogant. And it's so hard to be around these kinds of people because they literally think that they are the best thing since sliced bread. And it's just like, please knock it down just a little bit, right? And I want to let you guys know that the best thing you can do in terms of being around a narcissist is to not be around them. It's the best thing you can do. If you're stuck living with them, find a way, any way possible, to get as far away from them as you can. Depending on the severity, of course, of the situation, you can try having limited contact with them, very heavy boundaries with your communication, or completely no contact at all. It just depends on what you need, what you can, you know, put up with. But you should not be putting up with anything that you don't want to. I want you guys to know that. So vindictive, they're very hypersensitive to rejection, disagreement, and perceived criticism. They take revenge, per se, on people who wrong them. So this is kind of similar to the malignant narcissist. These are the kinds of people who, when they are rejected, they turn into like John Wick and they just go on this kind of rampage. There's so many stories of women who have refused men's advances and they have, you know, I don't want to give you my phone number. And those women ended up losing their life. That is the perfect example of a vindictive narcissist because in their minds, they really think that, okay, well, she didn't give me her number, so I should just end her life. It's a very weird delusion that a lot of these people have. But in their minds, they are completely justified. Everybody else is the problem. And unfortunately, they never actually end up getting the help that they need because they genuinely don't believe anything is wrong with them. And I want you guys to know that all of these roles are interchangeable, they're not gender exclusive. Anyone can be any of these things. I just want you to, guys to know that. And the somatic, cerebral, and sexual seductive, I'm going to add all of those in kind of, you know, together. So somatic, obsessed with the body, physical appearance, or whatever. This would be somebody who's very vain. And we see so much vanity today in our society. It's who can have the best filter, who has the best makeup look, who's the thinnest, who has the biggest butt, the biggest boobs, whatever have you. It's a very shallow way of looking at oneself. And oftentimes, a somatic narcissist, these are the kinds of people, particularly women, who end up getting 1,000,001 plastic surgeries just to feel like they are beautiful. And I want you guys to know that the similarity or the common denominator between all of these types of narcissists is low self esteem. If I can look the best and be better than other women, then I'll be comfortable in myself. But unfortunately, that is a band aid on a knife wound. Until we, as people, go back into our childhoods and really address the hurt that we experience as children, you're going to live a very questionable life. And our childhoods, just kind of side noting, our childhoods groom us to become either abusers or victims in our adulthood. One of the two. You could be somewhere in between, but you're going to lean a little bit for, on one or the other side. Um, you are your inner child. You are a little bit older, you have a little bit more stuff, you have learned and experienced more, but you are still your inner child. So, somewhere in that somatic and even the sexual narcissist as well, somewhere in their psyche, their selves, there's still that little kid that's reeling from whatever traumatic experience that they had, and they're still trying to find a way to rationalize it and cope with it. So I just wanted to give that brief side note as well, that all of these things, the common denominator is low self-esteem. Um, Seductive, they shower their target with compliments and flattery and admiration. They will drop people if not praised enough. So this is, and this is going to kind of go into one of the manipulation tactics. These are the people who are in love with you the second day that they meet you. I want to marry you tomorrow. You know, they are very interested or very invested only for the sake of getting praise. I had a guy that I used to date, and he would always ask me, "Oh, well, how do I look? Do you like the way that I look in this shirt?" He was very, I don't want to say self-conscious about the way that he looked. And I found that odd because he was a very attractive guy. So for him to be so conscious about himself, and I want to point out as well that he would always tell me how good I look. Oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, I love your skin. You're this, that, and the third. Again, these seem like regular fine situations. But when you really look at the character of the person and what their end goal is, that will help you to determine whether this person is an abuser or a narcissist, or if they're just a genuine person. The results and the intention are the key difference in all of these different dynamics. Um, Theo, can you mute yourself, please? Let me see. I don't know if I can mute from here. Okay, that's fine. Now, the spiritual is the last one. They use spirituality and religion to feel superior, to justify abusive behavior, to intimidate others. Let's see. Yeah, I got to go down on my screen, but to intimidate others and so on. This is one of the reasons personally why I do not go to church. Now, I know I said I'm a Christian. You're like, well, don't you have to go to church as a Christian? I don't believe so because unfortunately, and it's not just churches, I want you guys to know that it can be the mosque or the synagogue or the church of Satan. It could just be a regular cult. These people are, I believe, some of the most dangerous kinds of narcissists because look at a lot of the religious cults that we've seen in recent history. They have beguiled people so much so to the point where their followers now believe that they're Jesus or they believe that they're the Dalai Lama or whatever have you. They have their followers believing in them so much to the point where they're willing to drink poison to fulfill whatever desire that this kind of narcissist has. Um, I want you guys to know that narcissism exists everywhere. The church, the synagogue, the religious groups, they are no exception as well. A lot of pastors are narcissists. And I will boldly say that. I've seen several of them in my life. There's no reason why you should be asking for $15 million for what? 15 million to build a church. And then when that all that money is collected, oh, well, we didn't get the land for the church, so we're going to have to start collecting again. How does that work? You know what I'm saying? These are the kinds of religious leaders that will bash people for not following the religious text or not follow the rules of the church. And they themselves are not even following what they're preaching. And for me, I tell people a lot of the times, a lot of these churches are in the way of people's salvation. A lot of groups, are in the way of people's true salvation. A lot of people have relationships with the church. They don't have a relationship with Christ. And to me, the clicking and the groups and the sexual abuse that goes on behind closed doors in a lot of religious settings, it screams narcissism and it screams abuse. So I just want you guys to know that these are some of the types of narcissists. And if you've ever had an experience with any of these types, please feel free to, you know, put it in the chat. Of course, you don't have to be very specific about your experience, but yeah, I was at my job. I met a communal narcissist. I was at my church. I met a spiritual narcissist, whatever have you. Let's see. Okay. Now we are going to go over some of the roles in a toxic or narcissistic dynamic. Narcissism is like a play. Everybody has their role. Everybody has to answer to the head producer, which is like the top narcissist of the family or the group or the relationship or whatever have you. They're very enmeshed. And what enmeshment, simply put, is we have to look and act and be as perfect as we possibly can because cameras are flashing. We don't want anybody to know that we have all of this BS going on in the back. So we're going to put on a jolly good show for everyone. And if anybody in this group, if anybody in the play dares to skip a beat or miss their line, or if there is even a hair out of place, the producer is coming with the hook to grab you off of the stage. So it is a very showmanship filled performance when it comes onto the entire narcissistic dynamic. Because again, with the low self esteem, they operate off of, and they're very worried about what other people think about them. So mistakes are not allowed. Perfection is the standard. And even if you're perfect, I want you to be a little bit better than perfect. Okay. So, what are the roles that we speak of? Okay. So, narcissistic dynamic roles refer to the pattern of behavior and interaction that often emerge in relationships involving narcissistic individuals. These roles are shaped by the narcissist's need for admiration, validation, and control. Unfortunately, oftentimes leading to an imbalanced dynamic in both personal and professional relationships. And I want you guys to know again that the primary role in a narcissistic dynamic is typically, or some of them, they are interchangeable depending on how much the victim reaffirms or challenges the narcissist's power or their position. So one day you might be their favorite person because you're playing into their delusions. And then when you wake up and realize, hey, that's not right, I'm going to call you out, you become the worst person on earth. You would have thought that you robbed their house and killed their dog or something. I mean, the mask just falls so easily. So number one, we would have the overt narcissist, as I mentioned previously. This is typically a patriarch. It does not have to be, but typically is. So this can be grandfather, dad, husband, sometimes even your son, right? This person, again, has an inflated sense of self importance. They lack empathy and they have a deep need for admiration. And it all makes sense. They use, abuse, and refuse all accountability. They want to be praised by everyone else. So to everybody else, they're going to seem like the greatest guy in the world. Oh, he's the hero. He's amazing. He's so nice. I don't know what's wrong with his wife. She's just crazy. Behind closed doors, they are a bat out of hell. Behind closed doors, they are an abuser. They are very concerned about how people perceive them. So anything to keep the mask on during the play. The overt narcissist, again, is obsessed with maintaining their image, their power, and their control over others. They may manipulate, belittle, or exploit others to maintain their sense of superiority. Think of it as like a pimp to their prostitute, right? Of course, it's a interchangeable. It depends on what the dynamic is, but think of a pimp and a prostitute. I tell you that I love you and I buy you things and I make sure you look good as long as you're doing what I want you to do. As long as you're going out and you're making money and you're bringing your money back to me. But if you keep that money or if you don't make enough or you try to run away, I will beat you into an inch of your existence. It's a similar dynamic, not exactly like it, but very similar in terms of I'm up here and you're down here. Now, the covert narcissist, typically a matriarch. This could be great grandmother, grandma, mom, sister, daughter, whoever have you. And I'm not going to talk too much about kids in this one, whether it's, minor children or adult children, because and I don't have any kids myself, but if our children are quote unquote narcissists, we have to assess ourselves because you raised them. So where do they learn that from? Because children don't just become whatever, they learn things from somewhere. So I'm not going to mention too much about the children per se in this kind of slide, um, as it relates to them being narcissists. But again, narcissist, sometimes referred to as a vulnerable or shy narcissist. They exhibit narcissistic traits in a more subtle, hidden, or passive aggressive manner compared to the overt or the grandiose narcissist. Typically, this woman, is an enabler, and they are consciously or unconsciously supporting the narcissist's bad behavior, often out of the need to feel needed, the desire to gain their approval, or to avoid conflict. Again, covert narcissists have very low self esteem. So they will sit by and, for example, allow their husband to cheat on them. Oh, well, you can cheat on me as long as you don't get anybody pregnant, or, you know, you can cheat, but just don't let me find out about it. What? And when she does find out about it, um, she doesn't really say anything. And when other people try to tell her, hey, you should maybe leave that guy or leave that place or whatever have you, this enabler will oftentimes defend their narcissistic partner or whichever narcissist they have an investment in. So it's almost like I don't even have an example. That was the example. This kind of person, they seem like the victim of all victims, but they are very abusive, particularly to their children. They're constantly tearing their children down, calling their children names, embarrassing their children, humiliating them in front of other people. And I say that the covert narcissist, particularly the female matriarchal covert narcissist, they, in my opinion, are a little bit more dangerous than the overt narcissist. Because at least with the overt narcissist, you can actually see what's going on. With the covert narcissist, they're very subtle and they do what they do systematically, very deliberately, and very intentionally. Because again, if I can destroy your self-esteem, then I don't have to worry about you making me feel bad about the lack of my own. And it's a very sinister activity or act that they do in terms of destroying their children. Um, Now we have the flying monkeys. These are family members and family friends who enable one or both narcissists depending on their relationship. If you can think about it in this way, the flying monkeys are their own narcissists in their own household. But when it comes onto your household, they're just these side actors and the background characters who are adding in and reaffirming the narcissists and their delusions. Um, their job is to, again, maintain the narcissist's ego, one or both of them. Their delusion, they justify and they rationalize their poor behavior. And because of that, the narcissist or abuser genuinely see nothing wrong with what they're doing because the flying monkeys and everyone else around them is saying, yeah, you're right. You know, you were justified in punching her in the face. They are yes people. They themselves are people pleasers. But one of the other things that they do is pressure the victim back into submission. Oh, these people, let me put it this way. Say you are a woman who was working at a office job and your boss, male or female, was a covert or overt narcissist. They put you through turmoil. They damn near hazed you into the company. They treated you so wrongly and unfairly. And then you decide, okay, I'm going to leave. I don't want to be in this situation anymore. I'm just going to leave. And now everyone is calling you. Oh my gosh, Stacy, or let's say Katie. Oh my gosh, Katie, they didn't mean it. That was just, a bad day. Oh, you're overthinking it. Why do you have to be so sensitive? Just come back to the company. These are the people who are supposed to gang stalk you and peer pressure you back into the place of victimhood. Because everybody, and I wish you guys could, I had like a marker I could use on the screen, but everybody from the flying monkeys up, it's a hierarchy, right? So I put it in this way so you can know that everybody above the golden child is at the top of the hierarchy. The overt narcissist is like the top of the triangle. Then you have the covert narcissist, the flying monkeys down here. And then the subordinates are the bottom of the pyramid. And they exist and operate based on you being underneath them. If you are not there, it's almost like having a game board on your back and you finally get up and all the pieces fall over because they need you. They need somebody to be in a position of subordination and victimhood for them to actually thrive. I'm sorry, guys, there's ambulances whizzing by if you can hear that in the background. Now, the golden child is typically given to a child in the family dynamic or just in general, a person who is favored by the narcissist. And I do see it's 8:13 here. We might go over a little bit. I did a lot, like a 3 hour, time for us to meet. Of course, I don't think we'll be here for 3 hours. Just wanting to kind of point that out just in case anybody needs to leave, feel free to, or you can stay the entirety, whatever works best for you. So they are favored by the narcissist. Let's see. Admit. They receive excessive praise and attention, and this person fears the narcissist and is controlled the most by them. Now, this child, whether a minor or adult, is the narcissist's favorite child because they use this child to reflect back to them their own narcissism and their own fabricated self image. This child typically becomes a miniature narcissist. Now, I used to be the golden child. And I want to point out here that these roles, like I mentioned before, are interchangeable depending on how much we reaffirm or challenge the narcissist's power. So, at one point in my life, when I was younger, I was the golden child. For me, I was always getting, oh, you're so smart. You're going to be a doctor one day. And this is not just by like a parent, but other individuals in my family or family friends as well. I could do no wrong. Oh, she's so smart. She's going to go to Harvard. She's going to be a doctor. She's going to do this, that, the third, whatever have you. And I, having very little self esteem at that point, believed that I had to live and meet these expectations because I wanted to be accepted and I wanted to be loved. I got older. Life didn't pan out that way. I'm not a doctor. And I did not go to Harvard. I went to college, but I didn't go to Harvard. Um, and now I get told, oh, well, why don't you go to school? Why do you want to do that? Why don't you become a nurse or a lawyer? Or, I just thought you would have been so much farther in life and you're a disappointment, right? Not to me personally, but to somebody else that I know that's very close to me, like my sister. And, me and her, we get some of these things told to us time to time. And it's like I moved from being the golden child to the scapegoat. But I'll go over the scapegoat after I go through the invisible child. So, the invisible child, this child grows up feeling invisible, unheard, and unseen. Within the family dynamic, particularly, this child does not get the attention that their older or younger siblings get. They are just, like the name calls it, invisible. This child typically feels the need to seek attention and can unfortunately sometimes end up with histrionic personality disorder. And this is a personality disorder characterized by extreme attention seeking behavior. Whether through overachieving or misbehaving, the invisible child is still met with a level of indifference. So, in a dynamic, particularly where there are three children, these roles are going to be given to each of those children. The middle child is always going to be invisible. Either the older child is too busy getting reprimanded, or the younger child is too busy getting praised and doted on. The invisible child oftentimes goes having their needs unmet, and they believe that their needs and wants are not important. And these are the people that, end up when they grow older having to be the best of the best of the best of everything. Or I need to overdress every single time I go somewhere because I just want to be seen. They might end up getting tattoos all over their face, piercings down their back, whatever it is. Not saying that's always the case, but these are typically the children that grow up never getting attention, now being very, very desperate for it. So I want you guys to be aware of that as well. And lastly, we have the scapegoat. So this child is often the emotional whipping post and the physical punching bag of the family. They are seen as the trash can for the family to dump their emotional toxic waste into. They're often seen as bad and broken by default. They are blamed for the family's dysfunction as a means of absolving the narcissist and any of the other characters in the play or in the dynamic. This child or this person absolves everyone else of their abusive behavior. It's almost like, well, we have the scapegoat and it's justified. She's always making noise. She's always up in her room or down in the basement doing whatever. The scapegoat is always going to be blamed for something. You're the reason why your parents are getting a divorce. If you didn't open your mouth and say whatever you had, we would still have the, money coming in from the government every month, whatever have you. Um, because a lot of abusers, manipulators, and narcissists lack the ability or at least the desire to really reflect and go inwards and actually assess what's going on to make better decisions, they project. So everything that is bad about me, I'm going to project it onto you. And then I will be justified in treating you poorly because obviously, you deserve it. So me now, I consider myself to be a scapegoat. I don't want to talk too much about my personal life, but I have experienced it all. I've been the emotional whipping post for so long in my family. And unfortunately, the scapegoat is the person who kind of keeps their family together. Once the scapegoat actually leaves the dynamic, um, all hell breaks loose. Literally, they need the scapegoat because, again, notice how the scapegoat is at the bottom of the hierarchy. Everybody above the scapegoat needs a scapegoat to be in that position so that they can maintain their dynamic, maintain their superiority, maintain their sense of self. Once that scapegoat leaves, now the family does not have a trash can to put its garbage into, and the trash starts to stink. So, what will oftentimes happen is number one, the flying monkeys will call you and come back. They didn't mean it. Try to work it out. You're overthinking. Stop being so difficult. They will move mountains to get you back into the dynamic. They will promise you apologies and say, "Well, I'm going to change and I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm going to do better." All of these are lies. It's all lies. They're only saying these things to get you back into the dynamic so they can continue abusing you so that everything will just remain status quo. Now, once the scapegoat does leave, they become what I like to, and I think, it's generally known as the black sheep. So, and let me go over here. Oh no, gotta go back. Okay, perfect. So we'll talk about the black sheep in just a second. So if you're a scapegoat, my heart goes out to you. If you have experienced any of these toxic dynamics, I empathize and I understand. And I hope that you become a fellow black sheep like myself will one day be. But yes. So, oh, did anyone have something to say real quick before I talk about some of these characteristics? Okay. So, growing up in dysfunctional households, especially surrounded by toxicity, you most likely were a victim. And I see you and I know because if not, you would not be. You might still face some of the victimhood that you know, are if you're amidst these people or amongst them still. So, say you still live with your parents or you see your family very often or you're still working at that one place, you might still experience some of this victimhood as an adult. Now, again, childhood abuse and dysfunction, it sets us up for failure. This dynamic sets the tone for our adult relationship, and it grooms us to become victims, codependents, and sometimes narcissists ourselves. Now, what do I mean by that? If you watched, for example, your mother be physically abused or cheated on when you were a kid, man or woman, when you watch that, this is programming your mind and normalizing this in your mind to accept just that. So, if that's the kind of dynamic you grew up in, you would then grow up as a woman to believe that it's okay for a man to beat me because I watched my mother be beaten by my father. And even though she didn't like it and I don't like it, that's all I've ever seen. I don't know any dynamic outside of this. Um, Same thing, you watched your mother get cheated on, so you feel like that's all you're ever going to experience, and you end up in relationships with men that cheat on you. And what it is it's literally the neural pathways in your mind that have connected to say, okay, love looks like this to me. So when I get older, even though it's not love at all, because my brain is wired from my childhood to believe that this is love, this is going to be my definition. And when I'm looking for a partner or I'm in a relationship, this definition of love is what I'm going to live out. So if love in your childhood looked like yelling, hitting, stealing, screaming, drugs, whatever have you, if there is no intermediary, if there is no healing in between then and the adulthood, you end up in that similar environment because the brain is not wired for you to thrive, it's wired for you to survive. And if this is what's comfortable to you, you are naturally going to attract it, entertain it, and remain in it until something, someone, some way, somehow comes in and says, hey, this is wrong. There is another way. Unfortunately, so many of us never got the therapy we needed as children. But the good thing about that is therapy is available now. And Dr. Beckwith, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Oh, perfect. I completely forgot about the introduction, but this is actually the perfect segue into you just kind of destigmatizing therapy before I go over some of the traits that the victim would have. And I want you all to know that Dr. Beckwith is my therapist. She has been an integral part in me leaving where I was and becoming who I am. Um, I give her flowers all the time because she's just great. And I will, pass it over to her and let her, destigmatize therapy for you. Go ahead, Dr. Beckwith.
Oh, well, I thank you very much, Alyssa. I really truly appreciate that very, very much. And wow, I'm just truly impressed by everything that I've heard tonight. And so far, you are doing such a dynamic job, and
Yes.
you've hit a lot of really, really, really serious points in terms of this particular topic. And it has gone unnoticed for a while, and or people have experienced so many different things that they could not put a label on or suffered in silence, unfortunately. And so I'm glad that you're bringing this to the forefront, and hopefully with all of us online now, we may be able to go out and speak to someone else and speak to someone else. I mean, it's amazing how sometimes bad news travels so quickly, but this is good news in terms of saying that there are things that we can really, really, really associate with and say, this is real. And I heard you say earlier that I am not crazy. And a lot of times we have learned how to stuff, how to mask, how to just go through our lives just doing and just being, because we sweep things under the rug until we start tripping over them. And so that in itself is a coping mechanism. But you don't have to cope alone, because counseling, therapy, I remember growing up as a kid, and I remember hearing, and hopefully this is no offense to anyone else of other ethnicities, et cetera, or anything, but I will always hear Black people don't go to therapy. Black people don't commit suicide. Black people don't. Ding, 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 ding. And so the list is endless. I'm a therapist, and I'm here to tell you that 90% of my clients are Black,
Mhm.
African American, whatever terminology you want to use for that. But I remember my cross cultural class the first time that I took one, and they were talking about who seeks out therapy. And African Americans was last on the list, along with Asians. And the question was why? And it's because of the negative stigmatism that goes along with it, in terms of people thinking that other people, primarily family members, were going to think they were crazy. Why are you wasting your money going to talk to that person? Why do you need to do that? And the thing is that hurt hurts, hurt hurts, hurt hurts, hurt. And or again, you don't need to go and do that. All you need to do is pray to God, and that will be over with. Or all you need to do is, I'll beat that out of you. Or just all kinds of different things, avoiding therapy. But I'm just glad in 2025 that we are seeking therapy a lot more, and people are finding their healing. People are finding their voices. People are finding courage. People are elevating their self-esteem. So therapy, counseling, etc., is extremely beneficial. And if you know anyone that is actually in a situation where they're suffering in silence, and or they appear to look like they need some assistance outside of the realm of family, outside of the realm of friends, please, please encourage them to take care of themselves, advocate for themselves, and seek someone else who can actually provide them with a safe space and have them in that non judgmental realm so that they can actually live their best life. Thank you, Alyssa, for giving me that moment. And counseling and therapy is not a negative thing. It is definitely, definitely positive. And that's the best thing that anyone can give themselves is that gift. All
Amen
right.
to that. Thank you so much, Dr. Beckwith. Um,
Absolutely.
I think that
Thank
was
you as well.
fantastic because, again, as victims or survivors of trauma and things of that nature, we can live a life of shame. And I remember very vividly, I was in Florida on a Thanksgiving trip with my family. And if you know anything about family vacations, especially when it comes to a toxic family, it is not for the faint of heart, especially if you are a scapegoat or a victim of the family. I can remember being in the bathroom having a panic attack because I was genuinely losing my mind. I was like, okay, I need to find a therapist. And I found one. She was cool, but it didn't work out. And then I found another therapist and I didn't really like her. You know, she was kind of mean. Then I found another therapist and she just wanted to hear me talk and she didn't really say anything. And it took some time, but I finally found Dr. Beckwith and she has been my therapist for I think maybe 3 years. If I'm I think about 3 years. And it takes time. Therapy and a therapist, like anything else, it takes time to find what really works for you. And don't give up on your first try. You know, you owe yourself the healing that you never got when you were younger. So I just wanted to give you guys that quick, side note that it is okay if you have experienced these things, there is healing and there is restoration. So if you are a victim of narcissistic abuse, oftentimes you might find yourself being a codependent. So, codependence or codependency is a behavioral condition where a person relies excessively on another for emotional, psychological, or sometimes physical needs. I used to be a codependent. And if you think about the word, the root word is to depend. When we are codependents, we literally depend on other people for our emotional well being. We depend on people for our mental stability, for a place to live. We have given over all governance and authority of ourselves to other people. And it sucks. It really sucks because people can tell. And for some reason, I don't know if it's just like human, you know, condition to misuse and abuse people that we have power and control over. I don't, I just cannot understand it. But codependency definitely puts us in a place of depending on others for our needs to be met. It's almost like we're a child or like an infant, and we're using these people to cope or to self-soothe, just like a baby would self-soothe with the hug or the touch of their mother. It's a similar situation to that. Um, you have poor self-esteem. Your sense of self and your self-esteem and your beliefs and things of that nature are very low. Um, this is because your self-esteem has been chipped away. So you might have very negative thoughts about yourself. You might even hate yourself. I used to be one of those people, and all of these things I have experienced. I just want you guys to know that. Um, you might think very negatively of yourself. You might believe that you are unlovable, that you are ugly, that no one could ever love me. Very low self esteem. And I want you guys to know that it was set up that way for you to believe that. Somebody programmed that into your mind, whether it was through you observing them or them teaching it to you. You have been programmed to have low self esteem. People pleasing is another one. I used to be a prolific people pleaser. This is somebody who oftentimes goes out of their way to please other people. Sometimes to their own detriment, they may feel responsible for other people's happiness or their well being. I used to never know how to say no. I didn't even think I could say no. I would do things and find myself in positions I did not want to be in. And while I was in it, I'd be angry and frustrated and anxious and cursing and yelling while everybody else is living their life and having a good time. But because I volunteered myself over and over again. Really and truly, when we start people pleasing or when we people please, for two main reasons. One, we are afraid of what might happen if we say no. We're afraid of what might happen if, we stand up for ourselves and we say, hey, I don't want to do that, whatever have you. We don't want to be rejected. If you look back to your child, were you able to say no when you were a kid? Were you able to have your own authority and say, you know what? No, I don't want to eat oatmeal, or I don't want to wear that t shirt to school today. I don't want to watch that movie. A lot of the times, and this goes into the weak boundaries as well, and I'll just kind of lump them both together. When you're a kid, your parents are in control of you. If you have emotionally immature, toxic, or narcissistic parents, that control ends up being domination. You will look and dress and eat and act and do as I tell you to do. And if you veer outside of that, then there is reprimand. So setting boundaries was oftentimes met with punishment. And through that system of punishment, you learned in your mind, if I set boundaries, something bad is going to happen to me. If I say no and I do what I want to do, something bad is going to happen. You might have been considered a good kid. I was known as a very good kid. Um, and it's because I just did whatever I was told to do. So if that was your upbringing, you most likely found yourself as an adult as somebody who has a hard time setting boundaries. You have a hard time speaking up for yourself. You don't really like conflict. You don't say no when you really want to. And you say yes when you don't really want to. Sometimes this can look like your partner wants to have sex, but you don't want to, but because they want to do it, you just say yes. And instead of you both enjoying it, they're enjoying it and having a good time, but you're emotionally torn up inside. You might feel sad or resentful or depressed. All of these things, right? When you experience all of these things, they can create bitterness. I want you to know that bitterness, resentment, anger, really and truly. And if you don't heal, it's those emotional dynamics within yourself that create the narcissist that you would become. You see what I'm saying? The narcissist and their victims have very similar origin stories, but it's the decision in the middle that kind of, you split roads and you say, okay, I'm going to heal, I'm not going to heal, and that's how you really become who it is that you end up becoming. Now, poor mental health, this is what a person experiences: emotional, psychological, or social challenges that affect their well-being. It can involve feelings of sadness, anxiety, stress, difficulty coping with daily life, and I'll even add depression into that as well. I have struggled with my mental health. I want you to know that. I am not somebody, you know how you have like life coaches and people who come and try to teach people, and they're really about like the money and the notoriety, and they're so grandiose. I want you guys to know a lot of these life coaches and relationship gurus and all podcasters or whatever have you. A lot of them are very narcissistic as well. They're not there to help people, they're just there to gain wealth, clout, and notoriety. But all of these things, I really have experienced them. And my mental health, oh, my mental health, where do I begin? I'm not going to give you my whole medical background, but just know that at the worst of the worst, I was in a mental health emergency ward against my will for a week. And that situation was a lot. If you guys had came to the Valentine's Day Girls Night event that we did, then you kind of know a little bit about that story. But I ended up, after being drugged, because I was just in a situation where I should not have been in. I was there for a week, and I can recall being so out of it that somebody else, one of the other patients, had to come over to me and tell me, hey, with your crayon, you need to circle this, 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 and this so that they'll bring you upstairs, because I was in the basement where like the really like the initial patients came. If you want them to bring you upstairs, you have to fill it out like this. And I was just dazed and lost and confused. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who the people were around me. I thought I was in an alternate reality. And these people were like my friends and family, young people from wherever. None of that was real. And when I tell you guys, I've really been in a position where I have literally lost my mind. It is only the grace of God that I am not somewhere in a nut house. And not only that, but to have all of my faculties and to be able to sit here and speak to you all this way. I want you all to know that all of this, this has been my life. And I'm now in a position where I want to teach other people, because emotional, narcissistic, toxic, whatever have you, whether it's in a relationship or a family, it is so taxing and detrimental to the mind. I used to be on antidepressants and things of that nature, and I thought that it would help me. And for a little while it did, but I was still in the dynamic that broke me in the first place. And again, it's only God that I have this joy and this fire and this drive and this passion now that I just have never had before. And I want you guys to know, give God a try, give therapy a try, give it a try. But yes, so some other things. You might lack a sense of self or self identity. This is typically because of enmeshment. Again, in the narcissistic dynamic, everyone has to play their part. No one can be out of step. So you've learned to be somebody that blends in and doesn't ruffle feathers with the narcissistic dynamic or structure. And any inkling of self expression was oftentimes met with harsh criticism and retribution. If everyone, so for example, if everybody's wearing white and you decide to wear, let's say, pink to the family cookout, you are going to be ganged up on, talked about, yelled at, belittled, disgraced, even humiliated, because everybody has to look the part. And so going through that, you would learn to not express yourself, not be authentic. And this is what causes a lot of misery for us as adults, because we're living a lie. We're literally living a lie. We are living by I guess, the definition of what somebody else wrote for us, but everybody is an individual. We cannot all be the same. It is okay to express yourself. If you like to watch SWAT all weekend and cuddle with your cat, you do that. If you are a Republican or a Democrat or a whatever, be that. If you are Black, white, Asian, tall, skinny, thicker or more voluptuous, or you're older, you're young, you like to paint, or your hobby, you just like to sit outside and collect rocks and leaves. It is okay to express yourself. You are a part of the divine creation. And if you look out at creation, sometimes when I talk to God, I tell him, wow, you created all of that? Like, the reality that there are giraffes somewhere out there, it's mind blowing to me. There's hippopotamuses, there's millions of types of birds and plants. I'm like, you really created all of that? And, you know, God created you too. You are a part of the divine expression. And when we blend in and fit in, we tend to end up miserable, because you were created to create and you were created to express. So it is okay to be yourself. And if and I'm talking to your inner child here, you are safe. It is okay to do whatever it is that you love to do. And I promise you, nobody's going to stop you, nobody's going to hurt you, and nobody's going to say anything bad to you. If you want to pull out that coloring book, you pull it out. If you want to watch those movies you used to love watching, watch them. I'll watch them with you. You are safe to express yourself. And if somebody wants to judge you for being yourself, you tell them to piss off. That's one of the parts of setting boundaries. Now, I'm a very nice person, but I'm not above telling somebody to F off and leave me alone because you got to put your foot down. You know what I'm saying? Now, going on to the next one is the difficulty with saying no. We kind of went over that already, so I don't think I have to go over it. Fear of abandonment. Oh,